Hey guys, I got my 1962 Chevy Impala 2-door Sports Coupe out here in the driveway, and it's kind of late in the day now to be washing it. It's been a busy day for us here at this house today, but thought I'd tell you a little bit about this car in case you're it's been a while since I've made a video on this car, probably close to a year, getting right at it. Anyway, it's a 62 Impala that's been in my family since 1962. My uncle bought this car brand new in Alabama on top of Sand Mountain. Had a Chevrolet dealership, and he bought the car brand new. My uncle was an insurance salesman for Life of Georgia Insurance, and so he drove a lot. This car's got a zillion miles on it. He drove them until the wheels about fell off of it. And he drove to Mississippi, Tennessee, of course, Alabama, Georgia, just all the southern states, selling Life of Georgia Insurance. And he bought it brand new. And in 1962, I was 5 years old. And I was at my grandmother's house on top of Sand Mountain. They lived on a farm, a 60-acre farm. And my grandparents I'm proud of my grandparents, but my grandparents were very, very poor. And I didn't realize, when you get to be an adult, you kind of realize how poor they were. They didn't have indoor plumbing in their house. And, they had an outhouse. And it's hard to tell this story. But anyway, they got by fine. They had a good life, had plenty of food. As I said, they had a 60-acre farm, and they done a lot of bartering, or another word for it's trading. There was a truck that came by that my grandmother and grandfather would trade eggs and anything that the farm produced, vegetables, anything, because my grandparents grew their own food. They had a mule. My grandfather plowed with a mule, and they just had a big garden. They really didn't need a whole lot. As far as money, they didn't have any, but they had a good life. I'm getting up to this car. Just bear with me for just a minute. Sometimes I gotta try to remember to be accurate. Anyway, in 1962, I was at my grandmother and grandfather's house, and as I said, they lived on Sand Mountain, and the soil, the ground is just all sand. And even as a little kid, my whole life, I've always played with little cars, toy cars, toy trucks. And I was making roads in the sand and in their yard, playing with my cars and trucks. Well, my grandparents lived way out in the sticks, and you could see a car coming for half a mile, quarter of a mile before it ever got to you. And it was this car right here. I looked up, and I could hear a car coming from a distance, and it was this car. And so it pulled in the driveway, in the sandy driveway. They didn't have pavement, concrete, nothing. It was just an old farmhouse. And I got up. I thought that was the prettiest car I'd ever seen in my life. And I got up from playing and run to this car. And I was way down yonder, and come running up to it. I thought, this is the prettiest car I've ever seen in my life. And I was 5 years old. And anyway, my uncle was in it. Uncle Arnold, that was his name. Arnold, that's his first name. I won't say his last name. Anyway, he was in there, and I come up to the driver's side window, and I said, "Uncle Arnold," I said, "is this your car?" And he said, "Yes." And he had a clipboard with paperwork. He was writing something on a clipboard, propped up against the steering wheel, and I was talking to him. He was answering me, and I said, "Uncle Arnold, this is the prettiest car I've ever seen in my life." I said, "Would you save it for me?" And he said, yeah, he just kept on writing, and I didn't know it, but my grandmother, she'd come out the screen door and was behind me, and I never heard her walk up. I was just I was just looking at this car. I thought it's the prettiest car I'd ever seen in my life. And my grandmother heard me say that I'd like to have this car. And so when my uncle drove the wheels off of it where it was time to get another one, I mean, he just, he'd keep them a few years and just wear them out and then go get him another new car. And that would be his next insurance car. Well, my grandmother bought this car from him. And it's been in my family the whole time. And I'm just, anyway, my grandmother was the only person that drove. My grandfather didn't. My grandfather knew mules and horses and cows and chickens and hogs and all that, but he never did show no interest in driving a truck or a car. And to be honest, this is the only vehicle they had. So my grandparents, they used this car as a truck or whatever that they needed. They used this car or any other vehicle that they'd had prior to this or even after this. So, I mean, this thing's hauled everything in the trunk, hauled everything in the back seat. It's been a car truck kind of deal, like a El Camino, I guess is the best way to describe it, maybe. But my grandmother bought this car and saved it, and she finally saved up and got her a 64 Impala. Is a black one with red interior, 4-door car, and drove it for years, but she hung on to this car. And I never did understand it, but she hung on to this car. And she took the best care of it that she could. It's never been wrecked. And don't pay no attention to all this stuff here. There's nothing wrong with it. It's all metal. There's no Bondo. There's no nothing in this car. It's all solid as a rock. Anyway, I'm trying to tell you the whole thing, but it's kind of hard to do sometimes when you're talking about somebody that's been so kind to you. But anyway, back about 1983, my grandmother called me and she said, "Hey, do you still like this car? Would you still want this car? You still love this car?" I said, "Well, yes, ma'am. I love this car." And so she said, "Well, why don't you come down here and get it?" By that time, I was living here in Tennessee. And I said, "Well," I called her Granny. And I said, "Granny," I said, "well, how much do you want for it?" I said, "I'd like to buy it from you if you don't, if you don't want it, if you're just trying to sell it." And she said, "Just come down here and get the car." I said, "We'll talk about it later." So as I said, I still live in Tennessee. And I gathered up, one Friday after work, I gathered up all my tools, and I'm not a mechanic, I'm not an electrician, I'm not good on cars or anything, but I gathered up everything I had because this car had been sitting kind of like in a garage for a pretty good while, not being used. And so I gathered up transmission fluid and screwdrivers and stuff like I would know what to do if it broke down. But anyway, spare tires, stuff like that. And I went over there and got the car and got it out of the garage, started up, got it out of the garage, and I checked all the fluids, the oil and the transmission fluid and anything that might seem like it needed attention for, 100 and something mile trip back, I guess 130, 140 mile trip back home. And, I told her, I said, "Well, I think it's in pretty good shape." I said, "I'm, hoping and praying it'll make it." And I kept asking her, I said, "Please tell me how much you want for the car. Let me buy this car from you." Because as I said, it's hard to tell this story. She said she didn't want nothing for it, that I could have it. And, it's just hard to tell this story. Please forgive me. But she said I could just have it. And I said, "I can't do that." I said, So, make a long story short, I gave her $1 for the car, $1, just to say that I had bought it. And I made it all the way back home in it just fine. It run like a top. I'd topped it off with gas before I left Alabama, before I left her house. And I have I've had it ever since. And, you know, I didn't bother, I didn't turn it off or nothing. I went on the interstate, you know, and I done a cruising speed in it, and it done fine. It's still got the 283 in it with the Power Glide transmission. It's all original, pretty much all original. I've changed a few things on the car, okay? It didn't have bumper guards on it, rear bumper guards. It didn't have dual exhaust on it. Of course, you can tell it didn't have these wheels on it. I've had it lowered just a little bit, but everything I have done to this car could easily be put back. I haven't done anything else. I've got the grill guard on it. I've got this hood pull for the grill guard. And hang on just a minute. Okay, as you can see, it's still the 283, and with the Power Glide. I have put power brakes on it. It already came with power steering. My uncle ordered that power steering. He even added some under the dash air conditioning, but when I got it, it didn't work, and it was hanging under the dash. I just took it out. I think I still got it too. But, you know, the old car needs some things. It needs a heater core or something, I think, done to it, but I don't drive it in the winter. The engine needs cleaned up really bad. But I've redone the trunk, and I've cleaned it out best I could and put that splatter patter paint all in it. That's something I done. And I bought these mats from, I don't know, Year One or LMC or somebody, and put in here the factory mats. I still got the original spare and the jack that goes with it. I just haven't put it in. But trying to tell you all the things that I've done to this car. I'm going to wash it, believe me. It's awfully dirty, I know that. Anyway, put new shocks. I've had the 283 rebuilt in it back in the 80s, probably 1985, and it come out, 283 has this right here, the little V with the red, white, and blue, but the 327 had the cross flags, and I just thought they looked so much better, so I put them on, the 327 emblems, but really it's a 283, but I just thought it kind of dressed it up just a little bit. I've added this passenger side door mirror, which is not positioned right, but it's a 1 year only. It's got this little lip right here. As you can see, it kind of tapers. It's got this little lip, and it's got the Chevy bow tie in it. I've done that, and I'll show you the insides. It's a mess. I haven't cleaned it up since I got it back from Randy's. I put a tissue dispenser in it, and it's still got the original radio, and it works, but I put an FM converter in it. I had somebody ask me the other day on one of the comments about the white upholstery. I got to tell you, the white upholstery, I've never seen it on another Chevy Impala either. That's not to say they didn't make it, but I traded for this from some guy in Florida. I forgot what I traded him, something, but it fit in here so well, I just put it in. But I just never have. This probably don't make no sense. That's new carpet too, and it's got a new package tray, new headliner. I've done things to it as I could afford to do it, but I got to tell you, there's been times in my life where I could not I didn't want to put much money into this car. Not that it's not worth it. It's because I was always afraid. There's been a lot of times in my life, and maybe you're the same, where you don't really know what's going to happen. And I'm kind of, there was lots of times, lots of years in my life for the longest that, I never did know how things was going to go from one day to the next or next week to the next, as far as jobs and marriages and this, that, and the other. And if I put money in something like this or something, I could sell this, but I could never sell this because it's always been in my family. And it's just something I just couldn't do. So I neglected this car for the longest time. Not because I didn't love it, because I do. It's because I was afraid if I put money in it, I would have to sell it in order to pay a bill or something. Does that make any sense? Anyway, I put this 59 Impala steering wheel on it because that's my favorite Chevrolet steering wheel, a 59 or 1960 Impala steering wheel. I just love the way it looks. I put this on. I still have the original steering wheel. I put a 61 glove box door on it, and I still have the original glove box door. There's a lot of things from a 61 that I put in here because they're basically the same. The doors and lots of similarities in a 61 and a 62. The radios, the whole dash, everything is the same. So that's why I've done that. But as I said, I just love a 59 Impala steering wheel. So let's see. I started up. That's what I meant to do. Is the reason I opened the door. Don't mean to make this video so long, but it's just as quiet. It's just a real quiet car. It's not a fast car. As I said, it's just a little 283 V8. But it's what I call a cruiser. It's not meant to go 150 miles an hour. It's just meant to kind of cruise down the road. And this thing rides really well, even being lowered a little bit. As I said, all the things I've done to this car, I can easily put right back. It wouldn't be no problem. I still got the original hubcaps. I've got everything I've took off, I still have. So it's no big deal. But to me, the story behind this car, with my grandmother and grandfather being so poor, and for them to struggle even longer to save this car for me, it's really tough. I couldn't sell it. I just couldn't. It's got a real good story to it, and as I said, it's always been in my family. And maybe y'all's had some stories like that too, but I'm just telling you, it's funny when you're a kid, you don't realize how poor someone is. I mean, you don't think about it. You think it's just normal. You're out on a farm and you don't know. You don't know. So, going out to the outhouse to go to the bathroom or going in the, vegetable garden to get some corn or pick some green beans or look for, go out there and look for a tomato or something, for a sandwich or, anything. And my grandmother was always real good about, she knew I loved sweet tea, and she would make me a big old pitcher of sweet tea. And it's just, I just thought it was normal. I didn't realize there was people, I didn't know there was people any other way, is what I'm trying to say. But now that I'm an adult and I realize how hard they struggled when they could have had it a little bit easier by selling this car to someone, because there's been people stopped in before I got the car and asked them, would they sell it, would she sell the car? And she'd always say no. Nope, won't sell it. So anyway, I thought I'd tell you a little bit. I'm trying to do this in a nutshell, but I get long-winded. But I just want to tell you how I got the car and what I've done to the car. And I hope it makes sense me telling you that there has been a lot of times in my life where I didn't want to put money in it because I was afraid, if worse come to worse, I would have to sell it. And that was not in my vocabulary to sell this car. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the story. I haven't. I'm going to try to spend more time with it. I'm going to give it a good bath and stuff. But as I said, it's getting late in the day. I'll pick another day when it's got a little longer to go in the day. Need to clean the wheels and this, that, and the other. There's nothing that I have done to this car that has hurt it. And everything that I have done, it's, I've had a few comments saying they don't like the car. They don't like the wheels. They don't, that's okay. Everybody has an opinion. And, I do too, but I got to tell you, this is how I like the car. This is the way I like it. Now, tomorrow, it might be different. But as of right now, and it's been this way for several years, by the way, the wheels and tires were used. I didn't buy them new. I couldn't afford new. I've had these wheels and tires are 17-inch for years, and I just kind of looked up on them, I guess, and I thought they looked pretty good on here. So this is what I put on. But as I said, there's nothing that can't be put right back to original. And it's a good running old car. I love this old car. And I talk to this old car. I know that sounds crazy, but I do. So anyway, let me know if you have a similar story or something like that. It makes me, probably shouldn't be telling you this, but it makes me about cry to think about the struggles. If you just knew my grandparents and what good-hearted people they were, and for them to save me this car, it about makes me cry. I can real easily because I was just so dumb. I didn't know that they were really struggling, but they were. And they loved me so much that they saved this car for me just because a little 5-year-old kid said this is the prettiest car he ever seen in his life. And to me, it still is. I don't think I messed up even at 5 years old. So anyway, appreciate you watching the video. I told you this, I guess this could be called a story time. I kind of do that periodically. So if you liked the video, please give me a big old, man, it's hard. Please give me a big old thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel. I'll try to do more videos on this car and my trucks and stuff like that. And I'm on Instagram, Primer is Best, all one word, and Facebook. Sorry, I got kind of emotional. Didn't mean to be that way. Didn't start out that way, but it's a struggle sometimes. But anyway, all's good. Everybody's happy. I am. And I appreciate you watching my video. I hope y'all have a great day. Y'all stay safe, and I'll catch you next video. I'll see y'all later.